Thank you for staying with us and welcome back. The federal government has reaffirmed its commitment to enhancing food security in Nigeria, this through a multifaceted approach that focuses on improving food production and promoting sustainable agricultural practices. Well, these latest initiatives were unveiled during the 46th National Council on Agriculture and Food Security meeting in Calabar, the Cross River State capital. Minister for Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, outlined several priority actions during his address at the meeting, where he highlighted collaborative efforts aimed at enhancing irrigation schemes, improved soil fertility, and developing information systems. Joining us now in the studio is food security expert, African farmer Mogaji. You're welcome. Good morning. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Father.
Right. I was asking, and it's good you didn't answer. So, here goes again. How are we looking right now in terms of food security?
Well, from a strategic point of view, things are better. Better because I believe the team now knows what to do. You know, they say wrong diagnosis leads to wrong prescription. But right now, based on conversations and the movement and implementation, I think we're looking in the right direction. Yes, everything still looks a bit...
The market prices
yes. But from a strategy point of view and the collaborations I'm seeing, we're going to get it right very, very soon.
And these initiatives that were put in place, that we are looking into, they've not been in place before. That's what I want to know. And what's the potential of some of these initiatives in the agri sector in our current day reality?
Okay. So one of the things ideally missing is that before we were doing, over the years, we would do a lot of meetings, talk. We will prescribe solutions that don't work for players. But right now, I'm seeing the ministry engage more professionals, not as staffs, but to call them to hear them talk. And I will give it to the Minister of Agriculture, Senator Kyari, who has engaged quite a lot of private sector people. I'm one of the people he has engaged. And one of the things is that he listens. I can say that publicly. You know, he's someone that you're talking to him and he's picking the phone, calling and saying, I want this, I want that. So that is, you know, in the right direction. And one of the things I personally do like about him, he's not somebody hungry for media who wants to be on air to just talk, and 6 months down the line, there's no result. You know, so that feedback is very, very crucial. And what really excites me right now, I was also at that meeting.
In Calabar.
Great. And immediately we finished, he said, I need to meet MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises. So I said, why? He said, Nigeria's food security is like trying to make a phone call. As I was thinking, where is he going with this conversation? So he said that you need a mast to get signal. The mast is the federal government. You need the SIM card. The SIM card is the commercial agribusinesses and the smallholder farmers. He said you need the handset, which are consumers. But most importantly, you need the airtime that connects everything. Those are the small, micro, small, and medium. That gap has been there. And I would say this. And he says he wants to meet them. And this weekend, in a virtual conversation, he's meeting them. In the last 23 years, and I've made inquiry, no Minister of Agriculture has met MSMEs. These people are the ones, the engine room, 23 years. So that wrong diagnosis of just funding farmers, doing policies, lobbying commercial, and this is where the youths really play the most. They are the micro, small, and medium. So now when you are able to diagnose appropriately, you are able, you know, to prescribe and get that disease out. So it's looking very interesting. Also this year, you've seen the Minister for Water Resources, both federal and state. You've seen the Minister of Agriculture, both federal and state, have a meeting to say, how do we work together? How do we fund farmers on the river basins? They are already in together. They can take care of dry season farming, upland farming, and I was also in that meeting. Okay, so they asked, what are your challenges? And we did tell them, and immediately they sprung into action. And that relationship is there. Over the years, you don't have cordial relationship with the Minister of Water Resources, Ministry and Minister of Water Resources. But right now, it's looking...
And they're supposed to be working together.
Yeah, they're supposed to be working together. Ministry of Agriculture does not have lands. Ministry for Water Resources have the lands and have contiguous farmers. So, but Ministry for Agriculture has funding for inputs for farmers. So you'll find what happens in the past. Ministry of Agriculture trying to take the shine. So you fund the farmers in the Ministry for Water Resources without acknowledging the water resources. So this bureaucracy has been there, but this time around, this thing is out. And beyond office, they have cordial relationship because for us, it's not just media. The media partly can be good, but back end. So I believe and I expect in 2025, especially from this dry season, we would see good, phenomenal progress in the sector to bring price of tomatoes
commodities.
And commodities down. That relationship has been missing over the years.
And it's key. But let's go back to your earlier point on talking about the takeaways from there. We also hear that delivery of agro-input now to farmers is also, paramount for the federal government, and they are going to improve this. But do we need that? And if we do need it, why are we not seeing it in the market? If, the farmers are enjoying some form of reprieve from the federal government in terms of needed seedlings and, all the whatnot, why are we not seeing it trickle down?
So you see, poverty has a very strong hold. And I will talk from my experience, both in Southwest and in the North, as a physical eyewitness. So when some of this input, and I'm not saying government's mode of distributing these things is perfect.
Right.
Yeah, there are a lot of lapses, Right. However, when the farmers also get some of this input, part of the challenges is when you want to give the farmer fertilizer, you bring them to the state capital. Some of them will travel 4 hours, and you give them fertilizer, seeds, chemicals. Now, the cost of logistics to move those things back to those locations is huge.
And are not factored.
Yes, and so they sell it off. And use the money.
What they should be using.
What they should be using, and they sell it off. So what that is saying now is that we would look at getting these things to the local government, and this used to happen, especially around the river basins. I've walked around river basins 29 years, so I know, across the country. There were warehouses where seeds, fertilizers, inputs were, and so farmers could come and buy it, and with one cart or Okada, they get it to their farms or to their residents. That is missing. Everything that has happened in about 2 decades is come to the state capital, and they don't give them funding for the logistics. So they sell it. And once they sell it, before they get home, there are needs already waiting. And that's why we don't see from the farmers. However, also, the M&E from government to ensure that if we are giving 10 trailers, it is 10 trailers that was distributed.
That's the monitoring, evaluation.
That's the monitoring and evaluation. That also needs to improve so that you don't want to give 1,000 trailers of fertilizers and it's just 500 that is distributed.
Eventually gets.
Yes, so those ends. But, if government is able to, bring in more systems to make it a local government conversation, we will be food secure. I've always said it. 6 months. We don't need more than 6 months of focus of the right people, right think tank to get things done. This is not rocket science. The farmers are waiting. The MSMEs have been praying to be recognized for 2 decades plus. And government's intention, and right now I'm more optimistic right now than before. And that's the truth. Now we have the president. The president has been interested over time because the ball comes to him. But there's the president and there's the presidency. Over the years, president and presidency in terms of implementation that has a huge gap. And also minister and Ministry of Agriculture, two different things. But right now, the four has improved in terms of alignment. The president will say, give this. Presidency
runs off
with something else.
Okay.
And parastatals under most ministries of agriculture. So at the ministry, this is what we want to do. But at the parastatals, they are implementing something contrary to what the president, the presidency, and the Ministry of Agriculture. So right now, we're finding a synergy happening there. And more than ever also, we're finding a ministry that is paying attention to farmers as collaborators. They need to help the parastatals to also see it that way. Farmers are currently tools, not partners, okay? And I've had a lot of, gory experiences with parastatals, that we just manage it just not to rock the boat in the country, because I was in a situation where the parastatal MD told me, and I won't mention names, told me to get out of a hall because I'm not wearing Ashwebi that they gave to farmers. and used security to send me out of the hall. Even brought mobile police to send me out of a federal government premises because I refused to wear Ashwebi, and I said, you did not inform me. I'm a corporate farmer.
And you were obviously not a great crasher.
No, I was invited, and I was sent out publicly in the midst of 200 farmers. I said, no, I won't wear it because it doesn't fit my outfit. And they used security to send me out. And when I insisted, no, I was invited, and you wasted our time for 2.5 hours, they brought Mopo to send me out. I just decided, not to make it a major issue and just focus on, okay, this man has potentials also. And so let's stay with his strength and just believe that, he woke up on the bad side. But that is how we treat farmers, as tools, not as partners. And that is what I see happening right now. We're beginning to see farmers place premium attention on them. And with the new initiative to focus on MSMEs, I think we will get there.
So I'm sorry, Olamide, but do you see that incident as was it recent, by the way?
Recent,
okay,
last month.
So do you see it as an isolated event now, or do you see it as likely to have an impact in I don't know, would I say investors as yourself?
Yes, it does, because unfortunately, most of the farmers that came from 4 states, we have been the one mobilizing funding for them in the last 10 years. And so I decided to get out of the hall and not create a scene, because many of them would have rallied around me. So if we begin to see farmers as partners and not tools, now just for a picture, you sent me out. How much more a farmer, a small older farmer who has no network, who has no brand, who has, So if we begin to place value on farmers, then we will treat them right. Treating farmers right and not just handouts. When we need them for photo ops, we bring them, give them 1 bag of fertilizer, and we move on. Rather than saying, how many bags of fertilizer do you want? What quality of seeds do you want? Not giving them what you want to give, and they will sell it off because it doesn't work for their environment. So there are a lot of broken gaps that, right now we're getting more experts in many of the parastatals, I would say, because, for me, it's enough of just sharing bad news. Let's talk about a few things working that we need to work on once we see the effort, when we see the open, and let's latch on what we find rather than focusing on what is not working. We need some inspiration now.
All right, so talking about, treating farmers with value, you mentioned earlier that you see a level of synergy with these ministries. How do we leverage on this to also communicate the government's intention to the farmers? We're trying to address the food insecurity here. When they get some of this input, how well will these farmers utilize this? How should we leverage on orientating these guys to ensure that it also brings out the result that we want and also impact positively on the end user in terms of pricing?
Well, I've always been advocating that government has not leveraged media enough. Now, media is the bridge between intention and implementation. So when you have a good budget for media to follow through, okay, because once everybody knows that media is reporting implementation, then everybody will behave. No bad egg amongst the good ones wants to be shown on media. Okay, so have a better relationship with media to show transparency through the process. That is number one. Number two is ensuring that we get the right input for the farmers. That is always also out of place. We are still not using hybrid seeds, which are not GMOs, but they are better in terms of their resistance and tolerance to like drought, too much rain, and or climate vagaries. We are not paying attention to the quality of input we give to the farmers. So when we give it to the farmers and the farmers see, oh, this is not the best quality that will work for me, the next thing they'll do is they trade off. And sometimes I've witnessed this also in many states, both south and north. The same supplier that supplies the produce, the input, parks across the road, reverses, and as the farmers are getting it, they are also paying cash for it and loading it back. These are things that happen. And one particular day when I went to challenge the head of a parastatal there and said, this is what is happening in a northern state. He said, my job is to ensure that it's distributed. My job is not to ensure that it is used. Politics is involved. And we did mobilize a lot of investment to that state. We had started 30%. We halted it and moved back south. Because if this is federal government input being sold in my presence and the man said, I can't do anything about it, I'm not authorized to. So we packed up and moved back and went to face our investors to say, sorry, we've lost 30% of the money, but we've protected 70%. And we were lucky that they were happy that we saved their money. So these things happen. When investors want to come and they see all those things happening, it discourages. But the MSMEs are the investors that will take Nigeria out of food insecurity. MSMEs are you and I, who have some savings that also want to impact the economy and also make some money because we feel the pricing. Okay, so when we say MSME, we look at mostly youth. Somebody who wants to retire and be an MSME in funding.
All right, African farmer. So in all of this, there is still a lot of talk. More than a year after the Tinubu administration took off, there's still a lot of talk about the impact of the Tinubu administration's economic policies on the food situation that we're seeing now, the food crisis or so that we're seeing now. But then how would you assess that really? Give us an honest assessment of the impact of those policies on food security.
Okay. Initially, they got a lot of things wrong in terms of, and I'm talking about policies and food security. Food security from what was announced and implementation was not entrenched in security, okay? And what has happened over time is that that was what created the gap in making food available. But however, right now, having someone who is not afraid to take risk, and that's the president, to be able to say tough decisions. We need tough decisions, and we are getting tough decisions. I now am hopeful that because of the minister, because persons matter in Nigeria, because of the minister who understands politics and policy and his openness and the team's openness. I've had engagement with the permanent secretary also, and that openness, we're going to get there very fast, very soon.
Right.
If if they don't go back on this momentum.
Okay, and the CNG evolution, do you see that as, particularly beneficial to the agri sector?
It's going to eventually be beneficial because fuel, there's going to be less pressure on fuel if we use the CNG more because most of the farmers use petrol to pump their waters during the dry season when there's drought. So when there's less pressure, I believe using CNG, in fact, using CNG for those pumps also will help us because it's cheaper. And if there's a deliberate focus to ensure that it's open to the agri-business value chain, there is going to be a huge light at the end of the tunnel.
And is it looking bright so far?
For me, it's looking bright. Right now, it's not looking like that, but I believe by the end of June next year, it's going to be a different dynamics. One, because we are also not going to keep quiet. We're not going to sit down again. We're going to sacrifice to ensure that the good ones that want to deliver, we collaborate with them. Private sector have not been collaborating with government. We've been saying government, 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 and government has been saying private sector. But right now, some of us will sacrifice and we'll get the job done. But it doesn't take more than 6 months to get us food secure in a few staple foods.
All right, African farmer Mogaji, we hope to talk some more with you pretty soon.
3 months from now, I'll come back.
3 months is far. All right, African farmer, thanks a lot for your contributions on the program.
Thank you for having me.